Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our holly bauble. It's our newest ornament, one of 4, and I have all of my pieces cut out in front of me, as should you. And we're going to begin. This one's pretty straightforward. I'll just go over a few things that I did off camera because they're redundant. We have this beautiful holly that I assembled here using these 2 layers. We did a couple more things to them, and then I actually glued some nice magenta, reddish, pinkish pearls in the center for the berries. Okay, so while we're talking about it, might as well just make one. And you can see it's two-toned here. I'm going with the lighter color in the back and the darker color in the foreground. Now what you're going to want to do before we glue this down is take and we're going to actually pinch the little leaves here. Now I'm using actually a traditional glitter here, and this is a much thicker material. Let's say it's at least 100-pound cardstock. Okay, so I need to push it a little bit harder. If you're using standard cardstock, it's going to be a lot easier for you. But I'm taking my pointer finger here and kind of pressing it down in the center, and then using these 2 fingers to kind of push up. Okay, so I'm pushing up with these 2 and pushing down with this one. And then I'm kind of working it out to the tip, and towards the tip I'll actually go ahead and try to pinch it as accurately as I can down the center, just to make that little curve a little more pronounced. Let me see if you can see it from that angle. Yeah, you can see how it's kind of U-shaped, where this one here is completely flat. Okay, and that is going to add, you can see the difference in how the light hits it. Let me try to angle it in a way where you can see it. I've got a lot of light here. But you can see how this side's lighter, that side's darker, lighter and darker, but here it's consistent throughout. So doing a simple little pinch like that is how you achieve that little effect there on the leaf. We're just playing with light. It's almost like inking, but we're just using curves and physics and science to achieve that. So we're going to do that on all of these petals, including the other color. And again, I'm just kind of pinching it right at the end. And I was thinking about inking the edges on this, but it's kind of hard to really get in there. And I don't really think it matters too much. You probably don't really see the white core on this too much, but if you want, you can definitely ink this a little bit. Inking glitter that's just this dark is not really worthwhile. Okay, so again, I've got the lighter layer in the background, darker layer in the foreground. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here in the center of the back layer. And my glue's being funny. Here we go. Now I'm gluing glitter to glitter, which is why I'm doing this ahead of time, so I can let it really sit for a little bit. Okay, and get that nice and centered on there, just like that. Now, as far as the little pearls go, I'm just going to grab 3 and we'll get this done. Now, sometimes when you buy pearls, they come on a backing like this, and there is some adhesive on there. Typically, most of the time, pretty much every time, I remove that backing or try not to peel it off, and I will actually glue it down to make it more permanent. Because otherwise, you run the risk of it really just falling off at any given moment. Okay, and we don't want that. So I'm going to actually drop my dots of glue on here, almost to kind of represent where these pearls are going to go. And we'll just throw those down, put this off to the side. We'll let it really set for a while we work on the actual structure here. This might be helpful to use a set of tweezers. Sometimes it works nicely. Here we go. Sometimes they're kind of hard to grip. Or, better yet, the pick-me-up tool never fails. I didn't realize it was handy. Okay, so the glue kind of smeared in there, but that's okay because it's going to dry clear, and there's plenty of glitter to hide it, so you won't even notice. Just get the pearls in this case really close together so that they're kind of touching, but that they're also centered. Okay, And I think that looks fine. So we'll put that off to the side, and we can begin with the construction of the actual structure here. Now these actually go behind the holly. I did ink this with a little bit of purple, and a couple things that we can actually do before we assemble the main structure. This is the little bottom. It's kind of like a little finial, and I've pre-folded everything. What you want to do is take and put some glue on this tiny little tab. It is triangular in shape. And this thing's making a bunch of noise all of a sudden. And now this glitter that I'm using here is, I think it's American Crafts. It's like a fake glitter, so you won't get any glitter flakes on your fingers, but it really glitters up the place and looks nice. So we'll take the other end of that, this piece right here, and place it on top of that tab. And again, this is glitter. So what I'm going to do is just flatten it. So this piece here is still connected to that tab, but because this piece is symmetrical, you can actually force it down flat. So you've got, it's just sitting flat here. And then you'll see here in a second, once everything dries, we just pop it back into shape. And this is the best way for something to dry, when it's completely flat up against whatever you're gluing it to, which is why I'm doing it this way. Okay, so hopefully by now it's mostly dry. And then we just pop it back out and it's taken its shape. Okay, and these guys are going to go, this is going to go on the bottom of our ornament. Once it's all done, we'll just put that aside and let it cure. And then this is the top of our ornament. Okay, it's pretty much all one piece. You'll notice that at the very end is a tab, and we're going to apply our glue to that tab. And I'm going to hit that with my finger to thin it out and make sure that I get it all the way out to the very edge. And then we'll grab it and bring it around to the opposite end and line it up as accurately as you can. You see some score lines here. At my vantage point right now, they're going vertically. Should match up with this score line here, as well as the bottom of this needs to match up with the score line down here. And again, this material, or this paper that I'm using, is a little funky to work with because it's not porous at all, and the glue has a hard time kind of grabbing onto it. It'll do it, it just takes a little bit longer. So just like I did with this piece here, I'm flattening this out so I can really press on that seam where the tab is connecting to the other end, and I'm just laying this out flat. I'm going to let that do its thing for a minute until I'm sure that it's not going anywhere. And it might have been a little premature, but actually it's okay. Okay, so we can open it up now. We've formed the shape, and I'm actually going to re-glue one little section here because I just peeled it back. So to do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the tip of a scrap piece of paper and just poke some glue in that little area that's not sitting flat. And I'm going to learn my lesson this time and let this thing sit for a minute. Okay, so I did put that off to the side for a moment because I don't want to force anything here. Now, as far as the main structure of our ornament, you can see these two pieces. I've already pre-folded everything. And what we're going to do first is actually join these two segments together using this large tab here at the bottom. Okay, just like that. So let's go ahead and begin applying our glue to this tab. And I'm going to work that glue out to the very edge with my finger. I'll grab the other half and pop that right into place. Get it aligned as accurately as possible. I got a little bit of glue on my finger there. There we go, and just press and hold that in place while it sets. And whenever possible, definitely put it down. Once you have the tab in place, and you know it's not moving anywhere because you can feel that it's nice and tacky, press it down on your table and use the upward force of the table that's created when you push down to your advantage. It makes things go a lot quicker. Okay, so now we have one solid piece, and what we can start doing is connecting these tabs. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to kind of work our way around this way, like this. Okay, so actually, one other thing too that is helpful is to kind of close up the bottom tab as well. So let's do that first. Throw some glue on this tab. And again, just kind of with a dabbing rhythm motion, kind of moving that glue around, getting it all the way out to the very edge of the tab. You can actually take this and fold it back. We'll bring this over. And I just folded it back to get it out of the way, so it's easier to get your finger in here if you need to. Okay, so that bottom tab is now glued down, and we can move up one level and start gluing this section together. Okay, so let's do that. We'll begin by putting glue on this tab here. And same thing, I'm just doing a kind of a dab thing here. You can also spread it. And tuck that behind its neighbor, line that up nicely. And press that into place. Okay, we can move this out of the way to get access to the next tab here. And same process. So one thing you'll realize the more and more you work with 3D paper projects is that we're kind of, in order to create round things, we need to start with some basic geometric shapes. Okay, and putting them together in 3D in real life is not difficult at all, but it can be kind of repetitive. But as I've mentioned in the past, this is kind of, if I wasn't having to describe everything that I'm doing here, you really get into a trance almost when you do this kind of stuff. And that's actually good for you. Good for your brain and your mind. Okay, so I'm just kind of moving along here, going, you can do clockwise or counterclockwise. I don't really think it matters. Just whatever feels comfortable. And moving right along. We're going to start heading up to the other tabs here. Now you see what I did there? I took the tab and kind of pushed it so that I don't want it to be on the same plane as this surface. I moved it back here because if I touch here, it's very unlikely that I'll touch this surface and blemish it. So we kind of do that to control the glue from spilling over onto other surfaces. And that keeps everything nice and clean. Okay, so now here, we kind of have a little debacle here. What we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to glue this down. And make sure that we tuck this tab in when we do that. Okay, we don't want it sticking out like this. Let's just pop it right in. Okay, and go ahead and put some glue on this guy here. And same thing. There we go. And get that connected. Now, one thing that you can technically do if you want, I may demonstrate it up at the top, but I don't think it's necessary to do right now. And that is to take this tab and actually glue it to the outside of this section. You technically could do that because we're going to take these panels and glue them over this, so you won't even see this. Okay, so you could technically do it like that. So you know what, why don't I just, it actually feels good and it looks good. So I'm going to do that just to demonstrate that this is something that you can do. And it may make it easier. Actually, it will absolutely make it easier because you don't have to worry about getting your finger inside there to push that tab up against this surface. Okay, so this is unconventional. This is not what you're used to, I think, with some of our files, gluing this. We have done this in the past, don't get me wrong. We have done something like this, and I think it was probably with some ornaments. Okay, but anyway, that's fine right there. Okay, so we're going to move up to the next level here and start applying glue to this section. And I don't know what's going on here. My glue bottle, I think, it's had enough for today. We've been in the studio crafting since about 10:30 a.m. and it is now almost 10:30 p.m. So we're getting all the crafting done in a day on all 4 of these ornaments. So I really pack it into one day. That's not always the case though. Okay, so we got that tab lined up. It's holding nicely, and we're just moving right along to the next section. Okay, again, go easy on the glue. Less is more. Get it nice and thin, but make sure you cover that entire tab. And grab that neighboring piece, line it up, and press and hold. Sometimes I actually just realize that when I get into a groove and I'm kind of doing the commentary here, I almost feel like I'm one of those fitness trainers and you're watching like an online workout. Kind of strange. Okay, next one. There we go. Get that out to the very edge. Pull it in. And there we go. Okay. All right. Okay, so grab this next tab here and add your glue. Get it out to the edge. Again, using your finger to kind of dab it. And I think that's it as far as tips for this goes. I mean, at this point, it's going to be pretty repetitive up until we get to that final seam, where again, you have the option of gluing the seam inside, or you can glue it to the outside because that is technically a little bit easier. Okay, so here we are again, getting to this seam where below, down at the bottom here, we glued that final tab to the outside. And you know what? I'm going to do that again, actually, just to show you that it's possible and it won't really affect the final result. But first, before we do that, we do have one more tab to glue in conventionally. Okay, just like that. And there we go. All right, and again, here's that tab. If we're talking belly buttons, this one's an outie. Okay, there we go. And like I said, I'm totally fine with gluing it to the outside. Make sure that this this edge right here is going as far as it can up against this section. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's looking really good. Okay, so now we're going up one level. We'll skip over here. We'll do this one last. And go ahead and apply your glue to this tab. Connect it with the neighboring section. And then we're going to repeat that. Now, as you can see, this is starting to kind of curve in now. So just make sure that you line this line up, this edge, correctly with this edge right here. And I might have waited too long. I don't know if that glue dried beyond the point of no return. There we go. I think that was okay. All right, so moving right along here to the next tab. Let's get our glue going. Okay, and line that up nicely. Now this is where it's going to start to feel a little cramped. So if necessary, just move some of the tabs out of the way to make it easier for your fingers to get in there. That way we can maintain our tidiness and just make sure that everything stays lined up and we don't risk ripping anything or making that previous tab come undone because it's not completely dry. So you can see here, I'm just folding this back so I can get these fingers in a lot easier. I don't have to reach over a whole nother section to get my finger in there. And actually, by folding the tab one extra time, we're actually making it, loosening up those fibers in there and making it easier for the piece to settle in to its intended shape. Okay, there's one more tab there. I'll fold this back so I can get my finger in there. Line that up. Okay, and now we're finally back to where we're putting the tabs on the outside. So we're going to continue with that method. Well, actually, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so we'll peel this back, and this one's going on the exterior. Okay. Dab that down, and I'll bring this back here. And there we go. And I'm kind of taking this section here and pushing it up against this little corner here where the, well, this edge right here. So making sure that I'm getting it all the way pushed over as far as it'll go. And that's looking good. Now I think, honestly, with these last two sections, we can just glue it behind because I can easily get my finger in there. So why don't we just start here? We'll get this one glued in place, and that's going to go behind this section here instead of on top. So it just goes to show that you could kind of do it both ways. Okay, and there we go. And that one's in place. I'll move this back, make way for our tab here so I can get my glue on the tab. There we go. Okay. And line that up. So the some of the non-paper related elements of this ornament is mostly just this bling on a roll. We're going to cut that down so that it's just one section, and we're going to go vertically on the ornament, right on the panel. We got to put the panels on first. So that's going to be our next step. Once we have the structure done, which that process is nearing the end here. So you can see that this gets a little repetitive, and I've shared a ton of tips with you already. So now it's just a matter of getting it all lined up nicely so that we can move on to the next section. And again, as I mentioned before, this is kind of the meditative part of this, because you're essentially doing the same thing over and over again. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to tuck this tab in as I go to glue this one down. Okay, now the reason I tucked that one in, and actually it's still sticking out, but I'm going to tuck it in because we're going to glue it to the inside here. And we actually have plenty of room to get our glue bottle in there. And actually, if it's not the glue bottle, if you can't fit that in there, here's another little tip. You can take and put a little bit of glue on the very edge of a scrap piece of paper. And then I can literally just, since there's no glue on the bottom, you just tuck it right under there and just paint it onto the area that I need it. Just kind of spreading it on there, okay? And then we can pop our finger in. We're going to take this tab and press it up against the inside here. We can move these out of the way. We still don't need those quite yet. That's the last section. Okay, there we go. And that just leaves this section here. I'm going to scoot over here on this side while that side dries. And all we need to do now is take and apply glue to these little triangular tabs. Very easy on the glue here. These tabs are getting even smaller than the previous ones. And you don't need a ton of glue for these here. Okay, so grab the neighboring section. Make sure it's nice and straight. This is a straight angle. I guess that sounds like an oxymoron. It's just straight up and down. There's no curve or no angle here. Okay, moving on to the next tab. Nice and easy, go easy on the glue. And line that up, press it into place. Now this is actually going to get covered up with that little top piece that we just about finished constructing earlier. But that goes on after we get the panels on. Okay, so continuing here with the triangular tab, line it up, press it into place, and hold it down. So it's funny how much sentimental value ornaments have for many people, I guess. Maybe not everyone, but I know that was from as young as I can remember. I always wanted to help my parents put the ornaments on the tree, and I think that's just kind of a rite of passage, or I think that's what they call it. Okay, there's the next one. Yeah, so I'm just curious to see how young of a child could put one of these together. I think that any child can do it. Just a matter of whether or not they practice using their hands like this to this level. Okay, so I've got one more tab in there, and technically you can totally, and I'm just going to use some tweezers here so that you can actually see what I'm doing. You can pull this tab back with your fingers and just throw a little bit of glue on there. It's definitely accessible. And just spread that nicely. You can use your glue bottle, the tip of it, and press that up against the neighboring section. And that's pretty much it as far as the main construction goes. And now we get to put some panels on. Okay, there you go. All right, so the panels, what we're going to do is we're going to alternate the colors. And you can see here, it's a little bit thicker at the top and very skinny at the bottom. And that's essentially how it's going to go on. And then we're going to alternate colors until we get this all in place. Okay, so now with this, I don't think we really need to train anything. What I'm going to do is we're going to focus our glue up at the very top and the bottom. I'm not going to worry about putting glue on the center here. I'm just going to start here and here. Make sure you brush that or dab that glue all the way to the very edge of the top and bottom. And we're actually going to start on the bottom. So pick a side, doesn't matter where, and line that up so that the tip of that lines up with the very tip of one of these sections. Make sure you have it nice and centered. Okay, and keep holding down at the very tip and then bring it up nice and easy, and it should match up right at the very top just before it starts turning up, right before that angle starts going directly up. Okay, and we kind of want a little gap in there. Okay, that's how we're going to create this nice curve illusion. I guess it's not really an illusion, but we're taking this tab or this panel and just putting it on over the segmented piece, but it's going to look very natural and curved once we're done. You can see how nice that looks. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with this panel. Just going to start at the bottom, throw a little bit of glue up there, and then just a little bit at the top. Spread that glue out to the top and bottom, very, very edges of each. Don't forget to alternate colors here. And we're going to grab this one, line it up just like we did the previous one. Make sure it lines up with the previous layer. Hold it down there at the bottom. And then as you work this up, make sure that these are like touching. You want this to be as seamless as possible. Okay, and then hold that down up at the top. And you have a little gap there because we added a little bit of inking. It actually looks fine. It doesn't need to be completely flush there. I think it still looks great. Okay, and now we can move on to another pink one. Grab the glue, just the top and the bottom, spread it out, just like that. And moving right along here, add a little bit on the edge there. Okay, line that up. At the bottom there, you want it to be kind of butting up against the previous layer, and press down right in that section where you have the glue. Start kind of wrapping it up and bring it all the way up and hold it there. And that looks great. And now remember, this little topper is going to cover up this top section too, just in case it's not like perfect. And it's looking just fine to me, actually. Okay, and I think that's holding well. So let's grab our next blue piece and let's get this panel on. Same thing. So yeah, I literally didn't put up a lot of Halloween decorations this year. I was just really busy. So that means that I have less cleanup to do, which means I could maybe get the Christmas stuff up early. That could be fun. Okay, so lining that one up at the bottom, right at the tip, and make sure it's centered, bring it up. Try to keep these two sections as close together as possible so that it gives the appearance of it being mostly seamless. And it looks great. Actually, surprisingly, very easy. This is my first time putting it together, as I'm sure it's yours. And I think these colors just work really well together as well, especially when it comes to hiding any little imperfections. I think that looks great. Okay, so grab our last purple or pink piece, somewhere in between. I'm gonna hit that with my finger, get it all the way out to the edge, clean up any off the side if you have any there, and just keep on moving here. Get it nice and lined up at the tip, press that down right where that glue was at the bottom, and start bringing it up to the top. And if you need to give it a little nudge to the left or to the right, do that before the glue really takes hold. And there we go. Yeah, so this one's fun. This one's going on real nice. Very straightforward. Okay, there we go. And that just leaves one more. Hopefully I'm not going too fast here. Again, top and bottom. Definitely love decorating for Christmas. The colors are wonderful, and all the little lights, they really just kind of create a nice, warm, cozy environment. Now, one thing I noticed over time, especially when they introduced the LED lights, they make LED Christmas lights, and I'm sorry to say that the color temperature of those, they're too cold. The old lights were incandescent bulbs, and they burned like a nice warm color. Some of those LED lights, they're just, they feel like the tundra. There's no warmth coming out of them. They really take away from that feeling, I think, anyway. So I try to find the traditional bulbs when I need to buy replacements, or I try to find LEDs that burn warm. Okay, so there's that. It looks great, actually. It looks perfect. So at this point, you can put the bottom on, and that's just going to go on just like that. It's very simple, and I think what we can do is just put some glue on each of these little guys here, because I think that's really the only place it's going to make contact. Okay, and I'm going to just hit that with my finger and spread it around. Okay, and I'm just going to slide that right up. Just make sure that you've got it lined up correctly. Slide it right up and on. Make sure it's nice and centered and pointing the correct way. And I am, because again, this is that glitter paper, I'm gonna have to hold this in place for just a few moments to make sure that it really stays. Okay, so I'll meet you back here in a second. You don't need to watch me do this. Okay, so now we need to just put the top on, and this is where, well, with this type of paper, it becomes a little more difficult because of the glitter aspect of it. If you're using cardstock, it's going to be a lot easier for you. I will recommend flaring these out and putting this flat on your surface, like so. Okay, so I know we're coming back to this. This is one of the first things we kind of started to assemble, but that's okay. All right, let's get our glue on all those tabs. There's 5 total. And I'm gonna dab that with my finger, make sure that that glue gets all the way out to the edges of each of those tabs. Okay, and with this, I'm gonna pull off any excess because it's only gonna make it take longer to really set. Okay, so now what you want to do is we're going to close this up, and you're going to focus on getting it aligned with the side opposite of the side that is already hinged down. So center that and line it up first, and then you'll notice that on some of the sides you may need to kind of nudge the walls in a little bit, and that's okay. Just give it a little push and then press down on all of those little edges. There's two here, and one in front. Continue to push down on all of those while it sets. Mine's going to take a little bit longer because, again, I'm using this Bauble glitter paper. There's absolutely no texture on the back of it. It's almost like it's waterproof on the other side, which definitely makes it harder for glue to stick. Okay, I'm going to flip it over and just grab a dowel, push down on the rest of that tab so that it can kind of distribute the grip a little bit more. I'll flip it over. Check your edges there. I think that looks great. Okay, now before we glue this down, it's a good idea to run your string through it, okay, because it's going to be really hard to get it in later on. So grab your whatever string you're going to use to hang it from your beautiful tree and pop it through there, pop it back in, and it doesn't matter how long you make it right now. You can always kind of trim it later. I'll just give myself a little extra slack, and then I'll tie it off so it doesn't come undone. Okay, there we go. You can grab it through there. All right, so this guy is ready to go. We're just going to pop this on. Now, at this point, you can also kind of decide if you want one side to be the front, because if you have the holes on either side of the front, you know, it's gonna hang and stay like this. And so I was gonna face, well, I guess the side that has the two holes to the left and right of it is what you're gonna see when you hang it. It'll just naturally fall into this spot. Okay, well, obviously we're not done yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on each of these little guys. And let me make sure, yep, that looks good. So there's a little bit of glue under there. I'm just gonna press it right down onto that panel. Okay, and I'm gonna go over to the opposite side. So I wanna make sure it stays nice and centered. Throw a little bit of glue on this guy here and press that down. Okay, and I'm gonna go over here now. And I'll put a little bit of glue here, nice and thin. Don't overdo it. And press that down. And just work your way around and get all 6 of these glued down. Whoops. Oh boy, get that out of there. And that kind of shot out more than I wanted it to. I'm just wiping it off with a scrap piece of paper. Press that down. Continue on to the next section. Just dabbing that with my finger. Pressing that down, and I've got one more here. And I'll press that down. I think that's all 6. Well, that's all, folks. Okay. All right, so that's really cool. Actually, I think this is probably my favorite one of the 4. Okay, so now all that's left to do is we're going to take and on each of the blue sides in my case, and you can alternate this however you want, but we're going to put this little purple panel on here. I'm going to actually take this and just kind of train it a little bit to give it a little bit of a natural curve so that when we do put this on, it kind of hugs it better and it sits nice and flat. Okay, and we're going to bring this up to, well, I guess we can kind of just keep it centered. Yeah, there we go. Put that centered right on the blue. And that's going on flat. And then if we want to add a little bit of dimension, what we can do is use a little foam square on the actual holly and berry. Okay, so just pop that right in the center. Wherever you place it, just make sure that the next one you place in roughly the same spot. Okay, that looks great. Nice and centered. Nice and even up and down. Let me see here. Okay, so let's take this one and train it as well. And by train, all I mean is I'm taking this piece, pinching it between my finger and a dowel, kind of lifting it up 90 degrees and running the dowel through it. And that just kind of naturally creates a curve for you. I'll show you that one more time here in a second, in case you didn't get that. Okay, try to work some of that glue out to the perimeter so that those little scallops don't go anywhere. And again, like I said, try to keep it at roughly the same height as the other one. And of course, make sure you keep it centered. Just like that. If it's slightly off, you're not going to be able to tell, really. You can always adjust the holly and the berries floral element. Okay, that looks great. So far, so good. And the last one, so again, taking and pinching this piece of paper between my finger and the dowel, starting at the bottom. I'm going to take and kind of bring this up almost 90 degrees and then just run the dowel through. You can do the same thing the other way, and that just gives it a nice curve. Okay, so let's get our glue on the back of this guy. Yeah, overdid it. That's okay, because you can always take and just kind of dab it with your finger, thin it out. That glue is very unlikely to escape beyond the boundaries of this piece when you kind of dab it like that, so I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, again, try to keep it at roughly the same height. And that is about there. And then making sure it's nice and centered, press it down all the way around. There we go. Okay, now to finish this off, like I said, you can either use a foam square if you want to give it a little dimension. I would personally, I think I'm just going to actually hot glue it, because sometimes that alone gives it a little dimension. And I would keep, when you do this, kind of keep it, keep one of the leaves pointing straight up and down. So I'd put it on like this. I guess you could do it like that too. It doesn't really matter, but I think aesthetically that might look better if you've got one kind of pointing up. Kind of guides your eye. Okay, and that's going to go right in the center of this piece here, just like that. Wow. Yeah, this one is definitely my favorite, I think. I really love how that came out. Look at that. Okay, we'll just rotate that over to the other side. Throw just a little dot of, I'm putting a little hot glue on this. It's kind of off camera right now. I'll show you though. Just one little dot of hot glue right in the center. Okay, and here I've got the light green one pointing up. So I'm going to try to keep it consistent throughout, get that nice and centered. Right on that purple piece. Beautiful. I love this thing now. I'm in love now. Hey, you came out awesome, mister. And the last one here. So like I said, aside from that, take a look at the final photo. You'll see where all the rhinestones go. You'll also see what I did with the bling on a roll. Totally all optional, but I feel like you guys are really good with your embellishments, so I'm sure you'll add to it, no doubt. But that's going to do it for this one. And this is my last one. I've done all 4 today, actually, in between all sorts of running around. I think that turned out beautiful. Okay, so cool. Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think you're going to enjoy putting this one together. I think my 2 favorites from this bundle are the gnome and this one. The nutcracker is actually really fun too. So I think it's this one, the gnome, the nutcracker, and then the other one in order of favorite to least favorite. But anyway, that came out awesome. So, all right, so if you enjoyed the video, head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. While you're there, make sure you hit that little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new video like this one. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I'd love to see it. And so would our growing community of almost, I think it's almost 34,000 people on Facebook now in the group. Head over to your Facebook, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this little URL that you see here at the bottom. But either way, happy decorating. I'm going to probably do that this week. So if you do it, I'd like to actually see how you incorporate some of your Dreaming Tree projects into your home. I'll be sure to share how I do that as well. But either way, I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and also please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.